Yeah! Turn that thing down and get ready for school.
That's just wrong, man.
Come on.
It's adults in the room.
Thank you indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mario Hemsley, and I'm pleased to be here tonight because tonight represents once again an extension of some of the things that have been going on live around here because we've been being creative, Victor and I. My buddy, Victor Allen, had the idea to share with this world of ours the experience, the life journeys of some very important people because what they go through and what they went through continues to be part of the challenge today. Hence, Victor's new idea for the series that we call Oracles. Vic?
Yes, sir.
Tell them all about your idea there, my brother.
Yeah, I was inspired by somebody messing with me named Bridget. She kept bugging me, telling me I owed her money. So I said, I'll come up with a new show idea. No, that's my 5 seconds and it's done. I'm going to be honest with you. I've followed Reginald and his crew. And I'm not talking about in the way you think, but the body of work and what they've done. And being exposed to events where you go out and there being promotion and all that engaged in the promotional product, the one thing that I found that people needed was a lot of questions of direction. And sometimes you get direction by experience. And so I said, pretend like I'm the guy out there and I want to talk to Reginald. I said, I have a number of questions, but I want your experience because it's more inspirational if I hear somebody talk about what they went through. And it's always, to me, a success story in failure and in success. Hence why I said we need to have something where these individuals who we admire are really leaders. And we're in Los Angeles. There are a lot of places to be at. Oracles is the first thing that came to mind because I believe I want to tap into their brain. I have a lot of questions, but really he has all the answers. So I just want you guys all to welcome this man here, Reginald T Dorsey, the man that I believe, as many others, really go in a quiet way, demonstrating their body of work. But sometimes you just need to sit them down and tap into their brains. And I didn't know any other way to do it, so Bridget helped me. She helped me. And I want to give thanks to her because it was really her coming to me saying, I have something and somebody for you. So I hope this turns out to be a launching of something that's new. And people look at the example and listen to this man and his body of work.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Reginald T Dorsey.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's amazing. I've just met this man, and already I can tell you that his personality is magnetic, charming. So I'm already, sort of psyched up to hear about it because it's a rough world, right? We've been hearing lately, it's not a new problem, right? True. The issue of bias in Hollywood. And it's not just Hollywood. And so many of us undertake professions which are inherently, we know, to be biased and uphill battles. But you have those who continue to pursue, who seem to have that aura of growth. What's the secret? Reginald, tell us a little bit about what makes, you and how you managed to come through this. Don Cheadle, I read an article about him today talking about how Hollywood eats you up and he's still able to smile. What is it? What is the process that you go through, my brother, to allow you to maintain at least the head that people need to survive in this world?
I really think it has a lot to do with a calling, to be quite honest with you. And before I really go into that, I feel like I'm in orbit right now. so from this point on, I will be referring to you as Captain Mario.
I told him it's a wild thing here.
Yes, sir.
And again, you notice the person. Thank you, Reginald, too, for making us feel welcome here with you.
No,
and let them know, too, Reginald, we love to hear about the past because the present doesn't exist without the past. A person like you doesn't develop in a vacuum.
Right.
There's experience that led you to those things. So please, let us know again what led to you.
Well, when I was a kid growing up in Texas,
Ooh.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
What part of Texas?
Dallas. Dallas, Texas. I'm a real Dallas cowboy, by the way.
Okay, all right.
So, growing up, I was, would watch westerns on TV and different programs, and was drawn to, a variety of actors. Sidney Poitier, of course, James Edwards, and a number of other talented actors of that era. And something just sparked inside of me. Whenever I'd watch TV, if I was watching a Western, I'd watch what the cowboys were doing in the movie, and I'd do the same thing that they were doing. I start to, impersonate them. I had a little hoppy horse that Bridget always likes to tease me about. When she worked on my bio, I told her how I would ride this little hoppy horse like, I was going somewhere. And if they got shot, I'd fall off too. That whole thing. And really, it just snowballed from there. I started doing plays in elementary school, and really not knowing that you could make a career out of it or get paid for it.
Right.
It was just something that I had a passion for at a very young age. So from there, my family moved to San Jose, California.
Now, how was that as a cultural
Oh my God!
change?
I grew up in a predominantly African American neighborhood
Okay.
during the '60s
Okay.
in Texas.
Okay.
And probably had really only been called, and can I be blunt?
You could say yes, but
okay.
you could say every word.
Well, I had only been called nigger one time,
Right.
and that was in kindergarten, and I knocked a little white kid out and never had a problem from that point on. So moving to San Jose after my parents had divorced, and going to elementary school there was certainly a culture shock.
Because it's different from here. San Jose is a unique.
Oh,
Even back then, it was kind of cowtownish, but it still had the other progressive
yeah.
San Jose stuff. We used to drive up.
Right. In the east side of San Jose is
Right.
where it's happening.
Right.
But the west side,
Because they had immigrant kind of communities right there, the farm working kind of folks.
Yeah. But they also had a pocket of racism that was no joke.
Oh, yes.
And after a while, I think my middle name was nigga.
Isn't that amazing? Because California is supposed to be the liberal.
Right.
And you say in Texas, you only got called once.
Right. And I think it has a lot to do with blacks and whites really having to deal with one another on a more regular basis in Texas, and kind of growing up together. Whether or not somebody's family had worked for somebody else's family, the relationship was established. The familiarity was there, that you just did not get in San Jose, in the part of San Jose that I grew up in. So, I did a lot of fighting. I would literally fight 2 and 3 cats at one time to give my sister a chance to run home, that kind of thing.
Right.
And eventually, it's not anything that I'm proud of, but I certainly had no problem defending myself. And as my reputation grew, then, those things started to settle down.
Right.
And, it was cool for the time that I spent there, but I left home at 16. I couldn't wait to make a move. And LA was the place to be for me.
No, let me try to clarify that point. So you came to LA
Yeah,
at the age of 16.
16 years old.
From San Jose.
Yeah, from San Jose. Yeah.
Because I have to laugh, everybody, because from San Jose, that's cultural shock number 3.
Yeah.
Because San Jose is not LA.
Right.
By any means.
Right.
How was that, brother?
Being back here was like being at home in Texas. I found a great group of people, that I was able to build friendships with.
Like, what did you do? What did you specifically do, Reginald? What, you hop a bus, a train? What did you...
A friend of mine's family was moving to Pomona. And so I moved down to Pomona with them. And every day, I would ride the bus up from Pomona to LA looking for an agent. And
Wow.
as time went on,
Wow.
2 or 3 months here, I finally got an agent after walking Hollywood Boulevard, every day at 16 years old. Got an agent, did a couple of commercials, put away some money, Went back to San Jose, told my mom that I'm done with school, dropped out of high school at 16, 17, and eventually got my GED, which she made me get, but I was really done with school at that point. And not that I don't advocate education, but at the same time, I knew what my calling was. And I'd already done my first film at 13. I'd gone back to Texas, and just so happened a gentleman had some information that he was able to share with my mother about a film that was being done in Dallas called Book of Numbers. And my mother took me to the audition to do some extra work. And the director and producer at that time was Raymond St Jacques.
Yes.
And Raymond opened the door for me, started taking pictures of me, and from that point on, that's really kind of...
Now, how old were you then, Reginald, at that point?
I was 13.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what really opened the door on a professional level for me to find out what this crazy business was all about. And made a lot of really good friendships. And I like to tell people all the time that movie pretty much spoiled me, because I had a chance to see African Americans in front of and behind the camera. And when I got to Hollywood... From the beginning.
This is a distorted view of Hollywood.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I said, it messed me up, because when I got to Hollywood, I didn't see any of that. So that in and of itself was a huge hurdle for me to have to finally wrap my mind around, the fact that now everything was really going to be about work, and how do you overcome those obstacles along the way. And so I started studying, at different workshops, the Vanmar Academy being one of them, where I had a taskmaster of an instructor by the name of Ivan Markota. And, he really prepared me for the challenges that I would face in this business, and just, made me pretty much able to deal with just a number of different situations. It was boot camp.
Because you're a boy in a man's situation. Mm-hmm. So, Reginald, coming to L.A. from San Jose,
right,
presents a bunch of opportunities for you to make the wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
The wrong decisions.
Absolutely.
How did you manage?
My mother liked to say that I have an old soul. She really prepared me for life. Beyond my years, and so I was pretty much aware of what I was up against in terms of this being a big city and all.
Right.
And I know game. And I pretty much always known game, and really kind of had that instinct in me, to recognize it. So I didn't find myself in a lot of, negative situations. When I saw negativity, I'd make a move to go the other way, and it was there, no doubt about it, but at the same time, that too prepared me for being able to draw from those different experiences and be able to take that over into my work as an actor.
How was it that Raymond St Jacques was able to, because this is your opinion, of course, how were they able in those days to deal with the inherent prejudices, the bias, still get their work done? And he obviously, and be inspired enough to continue to struggle at it, right?
Right.
So how was it that, I always like to hear how the old guard dealt. Mm-hmm. How was it, what was the things he would tell you about?
One thing that I think was so prominent in terms of their beliefs and what they practiced was that coming out of the 60s into the 70s, we had to depend on one another. Whether it be via the civil rights era and everything that involved, or just a sense of community, because we knew we had to rely on one another. And I think a lot of that really helped overcome a lot of the challenges in the 70s. And it really wasn't about waiting on Hollywood to provide an opportunity.
Okay.
That spirit and that sense of self was already there. And thank God that I had a chance to be a part of it, because I carry that with me today. It's not about sitting around waiting for somebody to do something for you. We already know what the challenges are in Hollywood, but how can we still find a way to do what we need to do? So that was my main focus, and that's what I got from Raymond. That's what I got from all the other key people on that particular project, and various other projects that I was able to work on, during the 70s.
So tell us a little bit about that intermediate. I'm going to work up to the present because I'm going
Right.
to ultimately have you compare.
Right.
The days and time, because things have changed. Things change in all industries.
Yeah.
They change, some things stay the same. But
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about those early years now, after you got down here,
Right.
and you were starting to get into your career in Los Angeles.
One thing that is noticeably different today is that talent was taken a lot more serious. People really looked at you and wanted to find out about you, and they took an interest in you. It was hands on, as opposed to today. You making a funny video, and the next thing you know, you're on a TV series or something.
Right.
And people could sense whether or not you had the longevity in you to carry on a career. That was one of the things that I think Raymond saw in me. Instinctually, he knew that this was something that I wanted to do, and God rest his soul. Before he passed away, I was at a party at Shirley Ralph's house, and it was a New Year's Eve party, and he walked up to me and he said, "Out of all the people that I've helped open a door for, you've made me the most proudest."
I know that must have felt
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it really was. And this was, shortly before he passed away. So, just to have someone recognize that in me, I try to find that in other people, that I like to open a door for. And that's really one of the most significant things that's changed over the years, is people not only can recognize talent, but also are open and really working to develop that talent, because no man is an island, and you really want to build a community around you that can sustain whatever the vision is as a filmmaker or as an artist that you're trying to share with the rest of the world.
So what would be the exact worst things to come here with as an attitude today? Because, young folks, and I'm sure you run into them.
Right.
Young folks show up here all the time.
Right.
We meet them, and they have their
Yeah.
own view and vision.
Yeah.
Well, we all were young.
Yeah.
We all were young, and that
Yeah.
implies some
I
problem.
think the difference between me and a lot of the young artists today, who are coming to Hollywood, and I hear it all the time. Oh, I'm gonna come to Hollywood and I'm gonna kick its ass. I got a plan. I know what I'm gonna do. And that type of thing. And you get humbled real quick. And one of the things that has helped me sustain a 44-year career is the fact that I was always a sponge. I was always open. I was always willing to learn. And, I respected the elders. I respected those who had paved the way. And I was willing to sit down and take counsel with them, and really listen and watch. Whenever I could put myself in a situation, if they were on a set working as a director, producer, or even as an actor, I'd go to the movie sets and I would just watch and study, and pick up what I could from them. So I think development and training has a lot to do with what needs to continue to take place today if you really want to sustain any sense of longevity in this career. And I think that's what a lot of young artists really need to grasp if they want to continue to have a career for any extended period of time.
Comments coming in from social media. One of the questions coming in is, what's the most what thing have you done that you're the most proud of? Now, you mentioned the comment from Raymond St Jacques when he told you. What other thing have you done, would you say, you're the most proud of, whether it's big to other people or not?
Right. It always makes me feel good as an actor when I know that I've touched someone in a way that has inspired them. When I did the film South Central, I had a number of brothers who had served time in prison, come up to me and actually thank me for giving them an opportunity to see how they could turn their lives around. So when you wrap your mind around the fact that, you actually touch somebody in that way, it allows you to really understand that what you're doing has power, and you have to be responsible with that power. And that and my last film that I did, Kings of the Evening, was a tremendous opportunity for me as a filmmaker as well as an actor, but one that I was really able to kind of sink my teeth into and to share a part of the African American community's history from a historical perspective. So
actor, director, producer, your view changed. How do you look at the machine that is Hollywood today? I mean, do you think? You had a view when you came, you have this view today,
right.
and whatever it is, you managed to survive and endure. So to that, obvious credit, kudos, my brother.
Well, thank
you. But our impression of the machinery, whether it be the United States of America, the banking system, or whatever, Hollywood up in there is a huge industry. How has your views of that machinery changed or morphed over time?
Well, I appreciate that question, Captain Mario.
That's just wrong.
Well, this is the kind of stuff that you want to hear to me from the brothers. You want to hear, because they grew like we grew.
Richard Pryor had a saying, about the pressure of America and the pressure of some pockets of white folks in America, in terms of how pressure would make black folks come together.
Right.
And really that's what it was for me to become a filmmaker. I literally got tired of waiting for jobs. And I got tired of people wanting to pigeonhole me into just doing one type of work. And I knew that the only way for me to fulfill the vision that I have for myself as an artist was to either create my own work or surround myself with people who were like-minded. And so I decided to do a little bit of both. And that's really how, I became a filmmaker, writer, director, producer.
Got to ask you a little side segue, not to go into it too deep either, Reginald, because it's too controversial, but I am curious. Vic and I covered the whole issue with Zoe Saldana doing the biopic that's coming up on Nina Simone. A lot of different viewpoints, and again, the older brothers have a little different viewpoint because that whole argument that went on in the past about who's black enough, are you black enough?
Right.
Just, and without getting you in too much of a hole, because it is a big controversy, what is your take on that about Zoe Saldana, the whole issue of the Nina Simone biopic, as it relates, I'm talking about how your history and your perspective as a black actor, how does, because you're right there in front of it, know the biases, here's Zoe Saldana, what is your take on this whole thing as what's important, what's not, to take home?
Here's the elephant in the room. We have to tell our own stories. We have to be the creators behind our own stories by any means necessary. I cannot blame Zoe Saldana for wanting to stretch herself as an artist and to take on the story of Nina Simone, the life of Nina Simone. And, in terms of were there other actresses out there who might have been, as qualified or more to do it, of course there were. But at the same time, I would not in any way belittle, her for wanting to stretch her wings as an artist and getting that opportunity, taking it on. Haven't seen it yet. I pray that she does a fantastic job in the film. And that's really what it boils down to for me. I mean, it was an opportunity for her, and she would have been probably crazy not to take it, But at the same time, you had a white female director behind it that did not open up the casting opportunities as it should have been. And so those are the kind of things that we have to take into consideration. And just to take it a step further, I think that today a lot of blacks don't take advantage of different casting opportunities as well, because you see a number of the same actors over and over and over again. And again, I've been in the business long enough to know that there's a wave of talent out there that's not being tapped into, because we still feel like we have to please the masses as opposed to just doing the right thing. And when I say the masses, I'm talking about the studios and
right.
The financiers and what have you. But if we can take a page out of a white filmmaker's playbook, then a lot of times we have to get up and walk away from the table until we can make the type of film that we want to make. And until we take those kind of stances, you're gonna get the same of a lot of the same talent.
Right.
And that's why I became a filmmaker, because I've been on both sides of the equation, and I've had a chance to see a lot of talent that exists out there that wasn't getting an opportunity. And we took advantage of it with Kings of the Evening.
See, there you go. Well, I wanted that perspective. It was a big controversy around here. I can tell you, my viewpoints are very similar to yours. Unfortunately, I went and looked at the trailer, and they did her makeup so horribly they make it like a Frankenstein. Right. So now they went see, they complicated. I told somebody they complicated by doing and plus, they had a paid consultant somewhere. There's a brother who was telling them, "Don't do this."
Yeah.
And they ignored him.
Yeah.
And they ignored him. Now, the Vic brought up an interesting point just before we move on. Vic brought up an interesting point. What if they had an actress who was darker? Would it be okay to lighten them up? And I said, well, when they do the Lena Horne biopic, does that mean we automatically exclude every modern black actress because none of them are light enough to play Lena Horne?
Right.
What are you going to do then?
Right. And
it's a slippery slope like...
and here's something else that I like to point out on Kings of the Evening. As an example, in comparison to the Nina Simone story.
Okay.
The director and executive producer of that film were white. When I initially got a call to go in and audition for it, I was not signed early on as a producer. I was being looked at as just one of the actors for the piece. And I told my agent at the time that I was not going to audition for it. It was an independent film, and I felt like I could contribute in more ways than just being an actor on it. So he immediately told me that I wouldn't get the part if I didn't audition, and so I said, well, let me handle that. And I went in and told my future partner at the time that I wasn't here to audition for him, that I simply wanted to have a conversation with him about the film, and if he was interested in me being a part of it, give me a call. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. He and I had a meeting. He sat across from me. He said, what do you want out of this project? I said, I want to be one of the stars of it, and I want to produce it with you. And from that point on, we took off running and never looked back.
And you stuff enough, you were actually told not to ask for that. You were told not to do that.
Right.
You were advised.
Right. And for me, it was just one of those. I mean, because the piece, in and of itself, was such a beautiful piece, but I still felt like it needed to have a black voice, be a part of the production side of it, in order to give it the authenticity that it needed.
Right.
And the only way that could happen is if somebody like myself or another African-American filmmaker was a part, of that process. And that's the mistake that they made on the Nina Simone story.
Obviously, because all you have to do is listen. Any filmmaker who wants to deal with another culture, you would think they would not discount that culture, but they would investigate. This is where the old biases come in, where a lot of old Hollywood, they actually think they know black people. We can do that. We know that. And the truth is you really didn't, and you don't.
And still don't today. Yeah. And it's the biggest insult, and it's the biggest mistake that Hollywood consistently makes. Because, they'll turn around and say, well, black films, only have a certain reach in terms of an audience. The films don't travel overseas and yada, yada, yada. But all of that is a bunch of bullshit. The African American culture, hip hop in particular, travels worldwide, internationally. And you can't tell me that it's just the music. We as athletes travel worldwide, and you can't tell me it's just sports. So why wouldn't it travel, in terms of acting, in terms of
Certainly.
directing, in terms of producing, and in terms of sharing our stories that at this point, have really yet to be told on a grand scale.
So that leads to my next question. Where is the head of today's enlightened, progressive, black actor, director, producer? Where is the head? Yeah, what's on their mind? 'Cause there's always something, right? So yeah, with all that in mind, and here we are today with the state of Hollywood, increased sensitivity, because when we were younger, nobody cared.
Right.
So it's already better that there's a sensitivity on the part of white America,
Right.
even, of how stories have gone untold. That's unprecedented. I keep reminding people that when we were kids, no one cared.
Right.
Now you have a different. Now you still have some of the same old crap out there, but it's a different world today, Reginald.
Yeah.
So where is the head, the mind of today's actor, director, producer in terms of thinking, what does he need to do? What is he trying to do today? What do we need to do today?
First, you need to have a spiritual connection. Because that in and of itself will sustain you. You can't be fearful in this game. I'm sure at various points in my career, there have been whispers of me being blackballed or, not being able to work because of this or because of that. And I continue to work. I continue to carve out my niche and my own lane. And you have to watch where you contribute your power to. So for me, that's with God. That's a spiritual thing for me, and I don't look at any man as a roadblock. I don't look at Hollywood as a roadblock. If there's a will, there's definitely a way. And so for me, that's what keeps me grinding. That's what keeps me working, and that's what keeps me able to create opportunities not only for myself but people that I respect.
So no angry black man. See, this is what's amazing. Let's be real. Hollywood, the world, I guess even I expect people who work in these industries to be angry, bitter, hostile. Told you I read Don Cheadle's article,
Right.
and that's not what comes across. And he's
Right.
been dealing with it all along. You too. So would that be the answer, Reginald? Because you don't seem. I mean, you're obviously aware, and you have a level of consciousness that comes through, but you don't seem to be angry
Right.
of all the stuff you've had to deal with.
Right. And it's been a lot, trust me.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a waste of time to just walk around being angry. I have to put that energy somewhere. And so for me, I put it into creating different projects. I put it into finding the right group of people that I need to associate with, that collectively we can do some things together. Those challenges are always going to be there, but at the same time, it's, from an ancestral perspective, we've always been able to find a way, no matter what the obstacles were. I'm sure, and I tell people this all the time, that during slavery, I'm sure that there were people who were like, we might as well just be slaves because this ain't never going to change.
Right.
Somebody had to say, to hell with this.
That's right.
A whole bunch of people had to die trying in order for that change to come into fruition. And so for me, that's the mindset that I have to have, in order to keep moving forward.
So you got things to do still.
Absolutely. All day, Captain.
Reginald, So the challenge for many of us today, and we deal with this regularly, is the constant change in the nature of the media. Television itself is a relatively young industry. I always have to remind people this is a young industry. It hasn't been around for long at all. And things are changing, and now you have Twitter. Now you have YouTube. You have print media that's gone through the biggest shakeup ever in their history where things are changing.
Right.
Constant change. How are you, first of all, how do you feel about it? How are you dealing with it?
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. You know, I have a direct connection to my audience. I don't have to wait for a project to come around and then do publicity for it. I can create my own publicity. You know, every day. You know, I can stay in contact with my audience every day. You know, as opposed to sitting at a desk writing 1,000 fan letters. You know, I just hit send and send out a message and it reaches everybody. You know, so I absolutely love it, and it allows me to create followers and fans that when I do a project, I know that I can immediately tap into. And, you know, we start to move. We start to, you know, support what I'm doing or what another artist is doing. And so for me, it's a great thing.
How about your peers?
Let me just say this. As long as you keep some of your business to yourself.
Okay. Hint.
You know, there's a lot of information out there that we don't need to know about.
Right. That's
you know,
right.
But you know, you have to walk a fine line and maintain your dignity, maintain a sense of self, and you know, really just you know, keep it transparent, but not to the extent that you tell your audience everything about yourself. Because by the time you do a project, what's going to create an interest in you if they know everything already? So I have to save some for myself.
Upcoming projects.
Just finished working on a huge music video last week.
Music video?
Yes. That I was consulting on, and I actually make an appearance in it, and it's for a huge female artist. Huge.
You heard me say it. They have 3 times.
How many times?
Huge.
Wow.
And it should be dropping in about 2 or 3 weeks. You know, they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, you know, not to talk about it before it drops. But when it does, you know, I think it's really going to, again, not only inspire people, but allow her audience to see a part of our culture that hasn't really been shared to the degree that it needs to be shared. And so I was just really excited to be a part of it and hopefully make a significant contribution on it.
What do you think, considering all that, what do we need to see from our public? We know, not that we're going to get it, by the way. 'Cause I'm just saying, those of us who are out here trying to spread the word about the things that we do, we have dreams also. We have dreams about how the public might receive us. What are you looking forward to in terms of potentially reaching the new people and new audiences, especially with the fact that you could gather an audience in parts of the world that have barely ever seen you before?
Right.
What are you looking for, Reginald? What are you hoping for?
I'm looking for some unity. I'm looking for black men to respect one another, respect the women. I'm looking for black men to start loving one another and stop the violence. You know, if we don't do that first, then there is no future. And there's just too many situations that are going on throughout this country with everything else that we're dealing with as a community, that we have to stop and check ourselves individually, daily. And so for me, if we can focus on that, everything else falls into place. The way that we treat one another, the way that we are accessible to one another. That's important to me. It's important for us to work together in order to create, whether it's artistry, or just businesses, on a daily basis. There's so many different things that, because of the historical perspective in terms of what we've had to deal with as a community, that we've forgotten that it's important for us to remember that we did work together at one time. We did spend our money in the community. It did travel 100 times before it left the community. We actually had doctors and lawyers and teachers and people who we could admire and we supported, and we were proud to send our kids to them. And then somewhere along the way, I don't want to deal with them. It was looked down upon. It was lesser than, and we've always had that power. We've always had a sense of self and a sense of community, and it's for those of us who are willing to speak up and to shed some light on it. It's time to get back to that business. That's what I'm about, and that's what I want my audience to be about. If you like what I'm doing, be proud enough to go out and share it with the rest of the world. That's what I do for people that I admire, for people that inspire me. The 4 people in my life, some of whom I've had the opportunity of meeting: Nelson Mandela,
Okay.
Muhammad Ali, Minister Farrakhan, and let me see, people like my sister from the bus,
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks. It's people like that I still draw from, in terms of inspiration, in terms of what we need to do to just stay focused and continue to do what we were put here to do. Not only for ourselves but for our community.
Wow, Vic, it's interesting. We talked about oracles, right?
Right. I told you. It's going to be easy.
Because, Reginald, the idea was what we were saying, people have stories. The individual stories are so pertinent because we can relate. People actually kind of want it to be easy. Mm-hmm. They want to hear that you just walked in and it happened. They don't really think that how many years you started preparing for this before you were 13, because you was working at it at 13.
Yeah.
Oracles, we said, because the community needs to hear the stories about how we make it and how we're moving forward. Like I said, I'm proud because I'm sitting across from a man who's been working hard at this, and he's not bitter. He's not angry, but he is focused and he is aware. Mm-hmm. And that is a different energy of the soldier who gets to march forward. Thank you, Reginald. That's inspiring to me here.
Thank you. Oh, and I can't forget Dr. King as well.
Oh, yes.
And Malcolm X.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Yes. These are the people.
Right.
That whenever I think about the difficulties of what I'm going through, I look at what they went through, and it drives me, every day. And, even today, I surround myself with people, that are about community, that are about making great works of art.
So it's not all just parties in Hollywood then, Reginald? It's not just all
been there, done that. I ain't gonna lie. I can tell you some stories now. There's one actor, and I'm not gonna put him on blast, but he used to be on a TV series called Anyway.
Oh man.
And he knows, when he sees this, he knows exactly who I'll be talking about. But we would start on Friday, and he had a house out in Malibu, and we would pack our bags, and we wouldn't come back till Monday. And he had a pool in the front yard. And if I could tell you who would be at that house from Friday to Monday, boy, I could write a novel trying to tell you We had some parties.
Well, so there gets to be so that's part of the story too. There gets to be some rewards. You got to be careful.
Oh, no doubt.
But there are those rewards. And like you said, it's funny you came back to spirituality to keep you on a straight and narrow course.
No doubt. And the great part about the struggle is that in spite of what we were up against and still are up against today, we still found ways to have fun. I had a couple of buddies that they had done a soap opera for 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
And this was back in the early 90s. And so they put their money together and they're like, you know what? If we don't ever get a chance to do this again in life, we're going to rent a house in Malibu. And for the whole summer, we partying. And I'm telling you, Halle Berry, Wesley Snipes, myself, and the list goes on and on and on. That whole summer, I had a key to the house. We partied the whole summer.
Y'all pay attention.
Yeah.
I told Reginald, I said, when we first came in, we were talking, and I was telling him some of the things that you all even don't know. And that how Vic and I spend hours sometimes discussing, pondering, what is our role as developers, inventors of this platform. What is our role? We struggle with that. When it came to this issue of the show with you, it's one of those ones where I get to say, okay, I get to pay some dues on this. Because I'm looking for stuff where I can pay some dues, show the people this kind of a thing. Hopefully, we're hopeful, and I want everybody to understand that Reginald ends up being the beginning of the first of a flow of individuals. Because what we're trying to do here is bring everybody out there, them. Our ulterior motives are to build community. That's pretty much it.
Right.
And we're looking to connect old black Hollywood, young black Hollywood with Hollywood and the other folks of the world, because these, again, are the stories that didn't get told. You need to hear the stories because it'll affect you as the audience, how you look at today. You look at the struggles that go on, the racial issues that are boiling up today with a different perspective when you understand the history behind it. They don't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
So my hope is that you, Reginald, today are the beginnings of folks in that world that you have to recognize that they do have a friend.
Absolutely.
In internet television. We're not sure what we're doing, really, but we're going to do it with you and for you and all those things with the right spirit. But I have to say, just man to man, thank you for coming here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And making us feel this way. Everybody, let me give you some applause. That's our guest, Reginald T Dorsey. Yeah. Now, Reginald, where do you want them to find you somewhere? Or?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter, which I'm still trying to navigate my way around and learn how to really build an audience on. But I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Reginald T Dorsey, Instagram, Reginald T Dorsey, and I also have a fan page on Facebook. My personal page is full, but definitely hit up my fan page and blow me up, because I'm doing this for y'all out there. Trust me.
Hey, Vic.
Yes, sir.
So, Oracles.
Yes, sir.
First show.
Yes.
Season premiere. Reginald T Dorsey. What do you think, my brother?
Oh, no, I just get out of the way. It was, to me, it's the definition of unscripted is reality, and true reality is let knowledge flow. I didn't even get to half the questions I wanted to, and I said that I'm going to be sitting here silent because she's going to share it. And one of the questions, if you do decide to come back, would be the one we run into all the time. So many people think that once they see the finished product with what you do, they just say, I want to be an actor.
Right.
And I've always said, what is the first wall you run into in reality?
Okay.
And how that leads you down your pathway. And we can hold that for the next time. Okay. Keep everybody just short on it. Because this is so many experiences that have yet to be told, especially on your behalf.
And let me say this real quick. There's a brother that I just saw walk in, and he's standing behind
yes.
you. Come here.
Yeah, that's the man. He knows me.
There'll be all lasting value. This is it. Yeah. We got all the happening brothers.
If the cameras are still on, this brother was down in Austin, and he acted as a liaison for us when we were shooting Kings of the Evening. and just ran a lot of interference for us and really helped us make the production of Kings of the Evening what it ultimately became. But he's also in Kings of the Evening too, I think. In your
and I didn't know that Small World.
Right?
Jeez, Small World.
Meredithville.
This is the brother that together we were calling ourselves the inventors of internet television.
Right.
This is the association right here.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah, that's it.
God bless us all.
Yes.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been the season premiere of The Oracle. Reginald T Dorsey, Meredith Beal back there, lasting value. Mario Hemsley, Victor Allen. We're here bringing you the heroes who do the everyday work in our communities. And once again, our thanks to them. Thank you for tuning in.
And I thank you guys as well.
Peace, everybody. Yeah.
Too easy.
I like the way that you make me feel. Now slide your key in. Ooh, gives me chills. And with your engine trapped between my thighs, it's a power rush, a burning bush. You make me wanna fly. Oh, in and out of this traffic jam, dangerous and without a plan. Fill me up, boy, and let me ride. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. Feel the wind blowing through my hair. So alive, boy, and I'm so scared. Never knew love could move so fast. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. Pour it on, boy. Take me to the night. And ain't no stopping. So what's the use in trying? Destination, baby, all I know is that you and me were meant to be. Never let me go. Out of this traffic jam, dangerous and without a plan. Fill me up, boy, and let me ride. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. It's crazy, going through my head. So alive, boy, and I'm so scared. Never knew love could move so fast. Crazy love, it's a crazy love.